And the major injury of the weekend was Aidan Hutchinson. Yesterday against the Dallas Cowboys, he had surgery on his tibia fibula fracture in Dallas, where he remains in the hospital. Now, it's an injury that requires a 6 to 8 month recovery, but a short time ago, Dan Campbell, the Lions head coach, said it's a 4 to 6 month recovery. And you know what 4 months from now is? The Super Bowl.
Ooh.
So if some way, somehow, anybody can go make it happen, maybe Aidan Hutchinson could try to make it back to the Super Bowl if the Lions are fortunate to advance that far.
Yeah, Adam, just heartbreaking to see. You know how much this team, this city means to Aidan Hutchinson, and then on the other side, how much he means to them. Hutchinson will be a massive loss. He leads the NFL in sacks, quarterback pressures, and pass rush win rate. He entered Sunday as the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year at ESPN Bet. Marcus, when you saw Hutchinson go down, what are you thinking?
First of all, your heart breaks, because as an individual, he was having that season that was going to catapult him into the Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, Max Crosby group, the group of guys that affect the game at all phases of the game. But more importantly, the thing that I thought about, first of all, I hope that the surgery was successful, and prayers up for Aidan getting back healthy and mentally being able to bounce back from this as well. The other thing, too, is there are certain players, and Dan and RC played with them, that literally changes the concept of what you do on either side of the ball. And that's my biggest concern with the Detroit Lions. It's not about game in and game out, because I think they dominant enough offensively to take over games in a way where they don't have to heavily depend on a defense getting after the quarterback or doing all of those things. But it's the playoffs. It's the 2-minute drills. It's the 4-minute drills. It's dictating protection from offensive linemen. It's teams having to change schematically because they don't want to leave you solo and can wreck a game plan. Those are the issues that Detroit is going to face going forward, because now you don't have anybody on that defensive line where an OC is coming in and saying, we got a game plan for this guy.
I think that's why this is so devastating for Detroit, because not only was Hutchinson having an unbelievable season, leading all edge rushers in a number of metrics, but he was really the only source of pressure they were getting from the edge. I mean, he had 40 pressures. No other Detroit edge on the edge had over 7 this year. They are getting pressure on the interior. You saw that last night. Lynn McNeil, for example, DJ Reader. But to me, that's really challenging for a defense that, as we know, is very aggressive. They play a ton of man coverage. RC, I'm going to be curious to see if Aaron Glenn changes what they do schematically, if they have to blitz more to compensate for this, because right now they're not getting stuff getting much outside of him.
They absolutely have to blitz, and I believe Aaron Glenn understands that right now. How do you use Brian Branch in the blitzes? Are you going to add Alex Anzalone? Are you going to bring Amik Robinson off of the slot when you're playing against 3 wide receivers and 11 personnel? And it was heartbreaking. It was gut-wrenching. Think about if the Pittsburgh Steelers lose T.J. Watt. What does that mean? Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns, someone like Max Crosby for the Las Vegas Raiders. Everything that you do as a defense changes not only schematically, but from a mindset standpoint. It feels good to know on the back end that when we rush forward, we have a guy who can win if he gets one-on-one. This changes the entire tone.
What do you think it costs you to get Max Crosby?
I don't think the Raiders are trading Max Crosby.
Adam said earlier today that the Raiders were offered a number one or a one, and they said no, they would not do that. This was in the offseason.
Well, I mean, but the season's changed. The Raiders aren't having the season that they were maybe expecting for. You need a quarterback. Detroit can't waste this opportunity. This window is only.
Is there anyone outside of Max Crosby?
I think you call the Raiders for Max Crosby. I don't care if it costs you a first-round pick. You give it. I don't care if it costs you a first- and second-round pick. You give it. You're the best team in the NFC. I think you call the Cleveland Browns and ask what it would cost to get either Myles Garrett or Zadarius Smith.
That one's realistic. Zadarius Smith.
I think Zadarius Smith is the realistic
one. I mean, do you see where I'm coming from? Now, you got to make sure that Zadarius is and you guys would know this better, is he as willing to play the run as Aidan? You know, Aidan was so good in the run as well. I think you could call the Jags for Josh Hines-Allen.
He just re-upped. I mean, I think it's just so difficult to be in this situation, understanding that your window is now and that he's a huge part of you having an opportunity to get there defensively. But you don't replace him like that. And I don't believe that every team or many teams will be willing to give away their identity identity, which is what you will be asking from Max Crosby and the Las Vegas Raiders.
My viewpoint, RC, is this. At some point, the Raiders have to highly entertain trading Devontae Adams and or Max Crosby, because we both know they don't matter until they get a quarterback. And until they get the draft ammunition to go up and get the quarterback in next year's draft, both those players, while they're amazing, don't really impact their wins and losses in the future.
I don't think they'll have to go up much in the draft. The way things are trending.
They'll be high enough.
Call Max every day.
Yeah.
I would call the Raiders every day for Max Crosby.
He's a perfect fit.
And that makes him a Super Bowl team.
Fine.
Absolutely. They're not a Super Bowl team as of today, in my opinion, because of the unfortunate injury.
Yeah. We're back on Monday Night Football, NFL Live here. Tua Tagovailoa has been on the IR since suffering a concussion on September 12th. So, head coach Mike McDaniel had more on Tua's status today. Listen to this from the head coach.
There's still information that he's seeking this week, and as far as timelines go, I know he's not playing this week, and I do expect to see him playing football in 2024, but where that is exactly, we'll let the process continue.
All right, so let's bring Adam Schefter back in here for a little bit more. Adam, what can you add on Tua's return?
Well, Laura, the big news today was Mike McDaniel there publicly acknowledging for the first time that any Dolphins official has done this publicly, that Tua Tagovailoa does expect to play again this season. Now, that had been the conversation behind the scenes, that Tua Tagovailoa did intend to keep playing. He's been visiting neurologists. He's been to Pittsburgh. He's consulted with doctors, and he believes he is okay to continue an NFL career that many people were calling for him to walk away from. They wanted him to retire, but that's not the way that he has thought. This is the last week that he will be on injured reserve. He is eligible to be activated after the Dolphins' next game in Indianapolis against the Colts. He could play as soon as week 8. And again, he wants to get back out there. My sense is Tua will be back on the field sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Adam, it doesn't come as a surprise to me. Dan and I were there for the Dolphins game against the Titans, and they told us he's been around the facility ever since the concussion. He's been there. He's been himself. He's been smiling. But yet there's so much to this, right, RC? When you see Tua, it sounds like get back out on the field. Yeah. What will you be thinking?
Well, I think the first thing is I always expected him to play. Always expected him to want to play. And still, I and every Miami Dolphins fan and all of his teammates and all of the people watching that love him will hold their breaths every time that he takes a hit, every time that he decides that he's going to run the football, because we've seen some of the more horrific sort of post-concussion signs from Tua Tagovailoa during those incidents. And I also look at this team, and I don't know how you get that bad when you lose your quarterback. Sure. How there's that much of a drop-off. I remember in 2007, Tom Brady, who was the 2008 Tom Brady, who was coming off of an MVP season where he threw 50 touchdowns, gets hurt in game 1, and they go 11-5 with Matt Castle. And the drop-off of this team, I think, pushes to show the value and the worth of Tua and makes him want to come back. But how do you protect a man that now means that much to your organization from himself on the football field? That's very difficult.
Yeah, that's a great point, RC. The thing that I think about is the conversation always has to have context. Nobody's shocked that Tua is coming back. You look a couple weeks ago when he had the damn headphones on and the clipboard, you knew he was coming back and super engaged with the football team. The conversation revolves around 4 concussions in 2 years. That's the issue. It's not about if he was going to come back and people making suggestions that he should retire. I didn't hear anybody say that. It was a real thing because it was 4 of them in 2 years. And to your point, what's going to happen the next time one happens? And then the time after that. Those are the things now, career-wise, for Tua that everybody is going to have to brace for because you can't avoid them. Yeah. Like people love jiu-jitsu and football is football. You're not going to avoid them when they come to fruition. It's just how do you handle the 5th one, possibly the 6th one. And all of this is potential. But all of his history tells us that this is something that has been a reoccurring theme in his career. Hopefully he can get over it, but I think the conversation is going to be a part of Tua's career from now until he decides to leave the game.
Every time he gets hit, we're going to think
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
Nervous.
I feel like two things can be true. We can all agree that it's his decision. He has the information. He's entitled to do that. And we can also be incredibly uncomfortable watching him play football from this point on. I go back to the way he was hit this last time. He was diving for a 4th down in a key situation. That is going to happen again.
Yeah,
that is playing football. And I'll just admit, I'm really dreading watching that.
Yeah, I think your point is fair. No question about it. That's who Tua is. He's an ultimate competitor. I think there's a significant feel of being there with my teammates that he desires, and that's when he's at his best. Bringing it to the football field, they're 2-3. They play Indy after their bye. Can they get to 3-3? Because the back half of their schedule is absolutely awful. It is challenging team but after Buffalo, they play Arizona. After Indy, they play Arizona, Buffalo. We're going to see it tonight. The Rams, the Raiders, and New England.
They can. If Tua is close to what Tua was before the injury, they can beat all of those teams.
Correct. And so I think there's a part of this. I mean, you guys know this. We play the game to win. We play the game to compete, 100%. To win, to make money, right? And so if they can get to 3-3 and beat Indy without Tua, and then they go on that 5-game stretch, the whole conversation, the narrative about him and their team is completely different over the course of a month.
Right, but the thing that Mina said, like, that was football. What we saw with Tua Tagovailoa, we didn't see that one time in 2023.
Correct.
Right? But if they want to win a championship, if he wants to win a championship, he's going to have to make one of those plays at some point.
And he's gonna, right?
Are you comfortable if he doesn't, though? If you're a team, if you're a coach, if you're an owner, if you're Chris Greer, are you comfortable saying, if you have to make a play that wins a game for us, but you have to put your body in harm's way, don't do it?
Yeah.
And then the interesting thing is, would he be able to just take him out of those moments, like himself out of those moments? That's not who he is.
You know, like different players, but if someone said, RC, you can't go take someone, right? You're going to go do it.
But also, Dan, to your point, like, I understand the schedule and favorable, winnable. The question for the Miami Dolphins moving forward is, can you protect him? Like, forget who the opponents are. Like, yeah, you could conceivably get wins against all of those teams. Max Crosby plays for the Raiders.
But don't forget, he gets the ball out basically faster than anybody in ball.
And he's the guy with 4 concussions in 2 years.